Power does not belong to the strongest, nor to the most intelligent. It belongs to those who can see the game before it begins and are willing to play it without apology. Most people want fairness. They crave recognition, justice, moral symmetry, but the world is not designed for that. The world rewards clarity, not conscience. The one who sees clearly, who reads the shifting loyalties, the trembling ambitions, the quiet fears behind every smile, holds the true advantage. You cannot command others until you first command perception. The ability to see without illusion, to hear beneath the words, to recognize the difference between appearance and intent. This is the hidden trait. It is not kindness. It is not honesty. It is the discipline to perceive reality unfiltered and to use that vision strategically. That is Machiavelli's secret. The powerful do not live in the same world as the rest. They see the stage from above the curtain. They understand that men do not act from virtue, but from necessity. That loyalty bends to advantage, that love turns to hatred when power shifts. They do not despise this truth, they use it. For them, morality is a costume, a necessary one. But beneath the robe of virtue, there must always be the steel of calculation. If you wish to rule, you must learn the art of controlled deception. Appear open while remaining unreadable. Show emotion, but never let emotion dictate. Let others believe you are led by impulse, while every step you take is mapped in silence. To manipulate is not to lie, it is to understand human nature better than it understands itself. The masses are drawn to certainty, to faces that do not tremble. They will follow the one who speaks with conviction, even when the words are empty, for they prefer the illusion of order to the chaos of truth. Thus, power does not require sincerity, it requires performance. The one who performs best commands the crowd, not by truth, but by the mastery of appearances. A prince, a leader, a commander, all live within the same paradox. They must inspire faith while acting from doubt. They must speak of peace while preparing for betrayal. To survive in power, you must learn to hold two minds at once, one that believes, one that calculates. Compassion without strength becomes weakness. Strength without disguise becomes tyranny, but the fusion of both becomes dominion. The hidden trait that gives you an unfair edge is not brilliance, it is strategic coldness. The ability to look at a friend and know they may turn against you, to look at an enemy and know they may serve you, to trust no emotion that has not been tested by consequence. The world is a theater of masks, and those who forget they wear one are the first to fall. Understand this: the purpose of power is not to be loved, it is to be secure. Love can be taken, fear can be turned, but respect, born of inevitability, endures. The wise ruler does not seek admiration, he seeks stability. He cultivates loyalty as one tends a garden, trimming excess, uprooting rot, and planting new seeds where old ones have failed. There is no fairness in the realm of ambition. There is only positioning. When others hesitate, you advance. When they reveal emotion, you conceal yours. When they trust too quickly, you calculate. And when they finally see your plan, it is already too late. That is not cruelty. It is the geometry of survival. The modern world has softened the language of domination, but not the instinct. Corporations, nations, alliances, even friendships, they all orbit the same gravitational force, power. And power has no moral texture. It is shaped only by those strong enough to wield it without being consumed. So cultivate detachment. Observe more than you act. Speak less than you know. Let others expose their nature through impatience, pride, or greed. Then move, quietly, decisively, ruthlessly, when required. Because mercy without timing is suicide, and hesitation is the luxury of the powerless. Remember this: behind every throne stands a shadow, and the shadow does not envy the light. It understands that the light depends on it. The hidden trait, the unfair edge, is the mastery of perception, the art of restraint, the science of timing, to know when to reveal and when to vanish, when to command through presence and when to rule through silence. Power at its purest is not loud, it is invisible. It moves through influence, not declarations, through necessity, not desire. It is the whisper that shapes decisions long before the meeting begins. The one who understands this never needs to announce control because control is already his. That is Machiavelli's secret. The unfair edge is not in force, nor virtue, nor intellect alone, but in vision without illusion. To see men not as they wish to appear, but as they must act, and to turn that knowledge into destiny. The greatest deception in life is the belief that people are rational. They are not. They are emotional creatures wrapped in the illusion of logic. They justify after they act. They moralize after they desire. The ruler who understands this becomes immune to surprise, because he knows that virtue is a story men tell themselves when the consequence has already been chosen. The strong are not those who resist emotion, but those who understand it as a lever to lift, to move, to direct. To use emotion strategically is not hypocrisy. It is intelligence cloaked in humanity. When you learn to read people by what they fear, not by what they say, you acquire vision. Every word conceals a motive. Every gesture reveals a calculation. The art of leadership is to look through faces as one looks through glass. Behind every flattery hides ambition. Behind every confession hides manipulation. The true master of power never takes words at face value, because he knows that truth is the first casualty in every negotiation. To believe blindly is to hand your dagger to another man and invite him to strike. But do not mistake suspicion for paranoia. Paranoia destroys judgment. Suspicion refines it. The wise ruler doubts without trembling, trusts without blindness, and observes without revealing that he observes. The eye that sees everything must remain unseen. When your power is visible, it provokes envy. When it is invisible, it provokes fear. And fear, once rooted, governs without effort. People obey not because they are commanded, but because they anticipate consequence. The best punishment is the one never delivered, yet always remembered. Power must be maintained like a flame not too open to wind, not too smothered by caution. Excessive cruelty breeds revolt, but excessive mercy invites contempt. The ruler's task is not to be good or evil, but to be necessary. The state, whether a kingdom or a company, is not sustained by morality, but by order. And order requires the will to act when others hesitate. The greatest cruelty is indecision, because it condemns both the innocent and the guilty to chaos. The ruler walks alone because clarity isolates. To see the world as it is means losing the comfort of illusion. You will be misunderstood, accused, even hated. But this is the tax of sovereignty. The crowd demands leaders who promise justice, yet punish those who deliver it. You must therefore learn to act without seeking approval, for those who crave validation will never command obedience. The higher you rise, the less you will be loved. But if you are wise, you will see that love fades, while respect endures. In every age, the powerful learn the same lesson in different forms. People follow strength they cannot define. They are drawn to those who radiate certainty, even in silence. To be unshakable is to appear chosen by fate. The true advantage is not in domination, but in perception, the illusion of inevitability. Make others believe your rise was destined, and resistance dissolves before it begins. The myth of your inevitability is the armor that protects you from rebellion. The secret of control is not to suppress chaos, but to direct it. Conflict is energy. If you deny it, it consumes you. If you channel it, it builds your throne. Every crisis is an opportunity for consolidation. The weak see instability as danger. The wise see it as camouflage. While others panic, you maneuver. While they defend themselves, you redefine the battlefield. Order born from chaos is not peace. It is mastery. But mastery has a price. You will not be understood by those who live in comfort. The mind sharpened by conflict sees softness as a disease. Compassion must be measured, not given freely. The heart must feel, but the hand must not tremble. The world does not reward purity. It rewards precision. The most dangerous man is not the one who feels nothing, but the one who feels deeply and controls it. For emotion without control is destruction, but control without emotion is emptiness. To endure power, you must learn the rhythm of concealment. Hide your motives behind the noise of others. When they speak, listen. When they act, wait. when they sleep, move. Patience is not weakness. It is preparation disguised as stillness. Time bends to those who can endure its silence. The impatient destroy themselves by seeking quick victories. The wise conquer by increments, shaping destiny one unseen decision at a time. Remember this truth. Everyone wants influence, but few are willing to bear its solitude. Leadership is not a crown, it is a weight. It demands sacrifice without applause, vigilance without rest. Those who seek glory over endurance are unfit to rule. For the world is not changed by those who crave recognition, but by those who build systems so enduring that recognition becomes irrelevant. True power leaves no fingerprints. It leaves structures that outlive the hand that shaped them. Thus, the hidden trait, the unfair edge, is not ruthlessness, not charisma, not intellect. It is the inner discipline to remain unseen while shaping everything. It is the calm eye in the storm, the still hand behind the trembling curtain, the will to look at human nature, stripped of romance, and to say, "This is the clay from which power is made." Those who can see without illusion do not need luck. They create inevitability. And inevitability, that quiet force that moves beneath appearances, is the closest thing to immortality a ruler can possess. There comes a point in every life of command when the ruler must decide whether he serves the appearance of goodness or the endurance of the state. The sentimental choose image, the realists choose survival. History remembers both, but only one leaves institutions that last. The man who clings to moral purity soon finds himself ruled by the cunning. The world does not tolerate naivete for long. It devours it. And so, if you would govern, you must abandon the illusion that virtue alone sustains order. The scaffold of power is built not from ideals, but from control of self, of perception, of circumstance. To hold control, you must learn the secret language of necessity. Necessity speaks in silence, through the cold geometry of consequence. It asks not what is right, but what will preserve. The ruler who confuses the two will fall by his own principles. Yet the one who bends morality to stability is not evil, he is pragmatic. Evil is chaos without direction. Pragmatism is order without apology. Every decision that preserves the body of the state, even at the cost of the soul of the ruler, becomes a form of virtue in itself. For what is moral failure to one man compared to the survival of thousands? Every throne stands upon sacrifice. The difference between a tyrant and a statesman is not mercy, but foresight. The tyrant acts to soothe his fears. The statesman acts to secure the future. You must always think beyond the emotion of the moment. Rage blinds judgment. Compassion blinds precaution. The ruler who feels too quickly destroys what he means to save. Thus, the art of rule is the art of measured distance, to stand close enough to understand, but far enough to decide. Most people will never understand this distance. They mistake calm for coldness, restraint for cruelty. But leadership is a furnace that burns away illusions. It teaches that affection cannot sustain authority, and forgiveness cannot restore order once chaos has begun. To govern is to wound without hatred, to reward without affection, to calculate without hesitation. And to do this, you must harden yourself against the judgment of those who have never borne the weight of decision. The ruler is condemned to loneliness because truth isolates those who see it clearly. Do not pity yourself for this isolation. It is your advantage. It frees you from the intoxicating noise of approval. When you no longer need to be understood, you are no longer controlled. The greatest freedom in leadership is indifference to misunderstanding. The crowd cannot follow a man who bends to every cry for sympathy. It follows the one who walks forward while others shout behind him. They will curse him today and praise him tomorrow, for the people do not love consistency, they love results. The art of power lies in balancing fear and dependency. Too much fear and the people will conspire. Too little and they will forget their place. You must never be predictable. Predictability breeds rebellion. Instead, act with rhythm kindness one day, coldness the next. Keep them uncertain, for uncertainty keeps them attentive. Insecurity in your followers is the pulse that proves your authority is alive. The shepherd who allows the flock to wander too far loses them not to wolves, but to freedom. In modern times, power disguises itself beneath civility. The sharp edge of the sword has become the quiet control of information, reputation, and access. The prince of today rules not through armies, but through narratives. He shapes perception faster than his enemies can react. The battlefield is no longer the field, it is the mind. Influence, not invasion, determines dominion. And yet, the same law endures. He who controls fear controls the world. The forms have changed, but the human heart has not. Understand that ambition is a fire that never sleeps. It consumes those who try to suppress it. Channel it instead. Let it drive you, but never let it define you. Ambition must be mastered like a wild beast, disciplined, directed, but never extinguished. Those who boast of being free from ambition are liars or fools. Every human being desires dominion, even if only over their small corner of existence. The difference between the ruler and the ruled is that the ruler admits it and learns to wield it. There will always come a moment when you must choose between peace and power. Choose power, for peace without power is only the calm before defeat. The man who seeks peace through weakness will find both peace and power taken from him. The one who seeks power through strength may one day purchase peace on his own terms. In politics, peace is not a condition, it is a weapon. It is extended to the weak to lull them, withdrawn from the strong to pressure them. Use peace as others use war, strategically, never sentimentally. Remember this above all. You cannot reform human nature, only direct it. Men are not made to be angels. They are made to seek advantage, comfort, security. The ruler's task is to align their desires with his command. Let them believe that their obedience serves their own interest. Let them feel that serving you fulfills their own ambition. When their self-interest and your purpose intertwine, control becomes effortless. True mastery is invisible. It operates through others' will, not against it. And when betrayal inevitably comes, as it always does, greet it not with shock, but with readiness. Betrayal is the confirmation that you were dangerous enough to inspire envy. Do not lament it. Expect it. Every throne attracts daggers. Every crown hides a blade. The wise ruler keeps his back to the wall, his hand near the torch, and his enemies close enough to hear their footsteps. For in politics, betrayal is not failure. It is the proof that power was real. Power must be exercised as an art, not as an impulse. It must never be rushed, never squandered, never used to satisfy emotion. Anger is the cheapest use of authority, and the most costly in its consequence. The ruler who punishes from rage is a servant to the same passions he should command. Learn instead to make every decision as if the fate of your reign depended upon it, because it does. Impulsive acts reveal the limits of your discipline, and discipline is the foundation of fear. Without fear, authority decays into mockery. Those beneath you will not challenge your strength directly. They will test your restraint, waiting for you to falter, to react, to expose the human within the sovereign. You must therefore learn the subtle cruelty of silence, to let time punish those whom you could destroy in a moment. The true mastery of power is not violence, it is inevitability. To make others feel that opposing you is not rebellion, but suicide. When you achieve that perception, you will rule without lifting a hand. The greatest victories are those won in the minds of your adversaries before the battle begins. That is why the ruler's greatest weapon is patience disguised as indifference. The wise ruler never announces his revenge. He lets it ripen until it becomes indistinguishable from justice. Time, after all, avenges more completely than any sword. But to rule time, you must first conquer yourself. Self-control is not restraint, it is supremacy. The man who masters his impulses masters the tempo of events. The ungoverned ruler becomes a slave to circumstance. The world belongs to those who move only when the silence before motion feels unbearable. Every empire that collapsed did so because its rulers forgot how to wait. Impatience is the decay of empires. The more power you have, the slower you must move, for every gesture becomes an earthquake. The ruler must also learn to wear masks not for deceit, but for survival. To reveal your full self is to arm your enemies with your vulnerabilities. Transparency is a luxury of the powerless. The powerful are shadows that others project their fantasies upon. Let them misunderstand you. Their misperception is your camouflage. People cannot strike what they cannot define. Mystery is not weakness. It is the highest form of control. The less they know of your intentions, the more they will fill the void with their fears, and fear, once seated, governs them more surely than law. Loyalty, too, must be understood for what it truly is, not devotion, but alignment of interest. Those who claim loyalty love you only while their benefit endures. The moment their gain dissolves, so does their allegiance. This is not betrayal, it is nature. Expect it, and you will not be disappointed. The ruler's task is not to create loyalty through emotion, but to maintain it through necessity. Bind men to you not by promises, but by dependence. Make yourself the bridge they cannot cross without falling. In this way, even betrayal becomes a calculation in your favor. Every ruler must decide how he will be feared. There are two kinds of fear, the fear of pain and the fear of loss. The first breeds rebellion, the second breeds obedience. The art of governance lies in replacing the terror of punishment with the terror of absence to make people dread losing your protection, your favor, your presence. When men depend on you for safety or opportunity, you will not need armies to defend your throne. Their fear of your withdrawal will guard it for you. Power that is maintained through dependency outlasts power maintained through violence. There will come a moment when your strength will no longer come from your actions, but from your silence. The more you grow in authority, the less you should speak. Every word you utter will become law in the ears of others, and law, once spoken, binds even the speaker. The ruler's tongue must move slower than his thought. Let the people speak. Let ministers advise. Let the noise of the world cloud itself, and from that chaos, you will discern clarity. Silence is not passivity. It is the purest expression of command. For silence implies that you can afford to wait while others cannot. And yet, amid all these calculations, never forget that fortune is fickle. The winds of power shift without warning, and those who do not anchor themselves in adaptability drown in their own rigidity. The wise ruler never resists the tide he rides it until it changes, and then rides again. The illusion of control is the armor of fools. True control lies in adaptation, in knowing when to yield, so that yielding becomes conquest. There are times when retreat is strategy, when surrender plants the seed of later triumph. To appear defeated is sometimes the surest way to disarm the vigilant. Do not despise the mask of humility. It is the finest armor against envy. When others believe you content with little, they will not notice you acquiring much. Appear weaker than you are until your strength has grown beyond question. The sword unseen cuts deepest. Pretend to lose interest in what you desire most. That is how you will possess it. Let others chase the spotlight while you master the shadows. History is written by those who moved unseen until their work was irreversible. In every age, men mistake appearance for essence. They confuse confidence with competence, kindness with weakness, humility with impotence. Use these confusions as weapons. Give them what they expect from a fool, and they will never see the strategist beneath. The greatest manipulation is not to deceive directly, but to let others deceive themselves in your favor. That is the art of invisible rule, to build your throne in their imagination before it exists in reality. When the world calls you ruthless, do not answer. When they call you wise, do not smile. When they call you evil, do not explain. Power requires distance from interpretation. The moment you begin to justify yourself, you acknowledge judgment. And the ruler who submits to judgment, moral, public, or emotional, ceases to rule. The only voice that matters is that of necessity. Let necessity be your counsel, and history your witness. All else is noise. So when you walk through the corridors of influence, remember this. Every handshake is a negotiation, every compliment a currency, every silence a strategy. Trust rarely, promise cautiously, act decisively. The hidden trait, the one that grants an unfair edge, is not charisma, intellect, or cruelty. It is lucidity, the capacity to see the world stripped of comfort and yet remain unshaken. Those who see clearly and still choose to act, rule it. Those who flinch, serve. Power reveals more than it corrupts. It peels away the masks that men wear in weakness. It shows what lies beneath the politeness, beneath the civility, beneath the borrowed morals of social order. When a man gains power, he does not change, he becomes visible. Power is the mirror that strips pretense. It does not invent cruelty, but it unveils it. And so, the ruler must first look into that mirror himself before the world forces him to. If he cannot face the reflection of his own nature, he will become its victim. For the unexamined self is the easiest weapon for others to use. Self-knowledge, then, is the first fortress. You must know what tempts you, what frightens you, what can make you act against your own design. The one who cannot govern himself will never govern others. The unguarded emotion, the hidden pride, the secret fear, these are the doors through which enemies enter. Master your hungers before you master your subjects. For those who rule without discipline become slaves to their own desires, and nothing destroys power faster than the confusion of appetite with strategy. Control yourself, and the world begins to move according to your will. Control others, and the illusion of fate begins to serve you. But control is not domination, it is orchestration. The ruler does not crush every voice, he conducts them. He turns conflict into chorus, competition into momentum. To govern is to direct the inevitable struggle of human desires toward a single outcome, your own. Those who attempt to suppress every dissent end by destroying the very energy that sustains their state. The art is not in elimination, but in redirection. There is a moment in every reign when the ruler must appear human again, not because compassion rules, but because exhaustion does. To maintain power without pause is to invite rebellion, not from others, but from within. Even the most iron mind must occasionally wrest its mask, if only to remember why it wears it. To feel nothing is not strength, it is blindness. The ruler must occasionally touch the world, if only to measure how far he has risen above it. For distance gives clarity, but detachment gives madness. The balance is fragile, close enough to sense the human heart, distant enough not to obey it. The wise ruler surrounds himself not with flatterers, but with those whose fear of failure exceeds their desire to please. Loyalty born of fear is temporary, but loyalty born of necessity endures. Therefore, construct a system where betrayal harms not only you, but them. When the survival of others depends on your stability, they will defend your power as if it were their own. That is the true economy of loyalty. Not love, not admiration, but entanglement. Bind men by their interests, and they will call it loyalty. Bind them by affection, and they will call it freedom, until they find a stronger affection elsewhere. Every generation believes it is different, that its power games are new, its challenges unprecedented. But human nature does not evolve, it adapts. The tools of control change. The sword becomes the pen, the army becomes the algorithm, the throne becomes the brand, yet the struggle remains the same. The strong manipulate symbols, the weak worship them. Power has simply moved from the battlefield to the bloodstream of information. The modern prince does not command through decrees, but through influence so subtle that the ruled believe themselves free. This is the new face of power, unseen, pervasive, emotional. The ruler who masters perception today wields a force greater than armies. For perception governs reality, and reality governs obedience. It is no longer enough to be feared or respected. You must now be inevitable in the minds of men, the conclusion to which their reasoning always returns. The most dangerous ruler of the modern age is not the one who imposes control, but the one who convinces others they chose it themselves. To achieve this, you must understand that truth is not absolute in politics. It is operational. What matters is not what is real, but what is believed. If the people believe you strong, you are strong. If they believe you just, you are just. Perception is power's oxygen, invisible, essential, and easily suffocated by doubt. The ruler must therefore control the air others breathe. To do this, you must master the rhythm of revelation and concealment. Give the people enough truth to trust you, but never enough to know you. Transparency is the death of authority. It invites dissection. Power survives only in mystery. And yet, there is an irony that every ruler must face. The greater your control, the more fragile it becomes. For as power grows, so too does dependence on the illusion that sustains it. The ruler must never forget that all authority rests upon agreement, whether forced or willing. Break that illusion, and even the mightiest empire dissolves overnight. Thus, to maintain your reign, you must feed belief while disguising its construction. Show stability even when you are in chaos. Pretend inevitability even when you are cornered. The appearance of control is often control itself. Fate has a cruel humor. It crowns the ambitious and then tests whether they can bear the solitude that comes with sovereignty. The ruler's companions are not friends but functions advisors, instruments, reflections of necessity. Loneliness is not a punishment but a condition of clarity. To see the game clearly is to stand apart from it. The ruler must learn to endure this isolation without losing his humanity. For power without solitude breeds paranoia, but solitude without reflection breeds despair. You must learn to speak with silence, to consult with your own shadow, to make peace with the fact that trust is a currency you will rarely spend. When all else fails, when allies falter, when loyalty rots, when fortune turns its back, remember that power returns to its origin, will. The will to continue when others collapse. The will to act in uncertainty. The will to rebuild from ruin. Fortune may favor the bold, but destiny belongs to the relentless. The ruler who endures long enough bends fate to his rhythm. History does not favor the just or the kind. It favors the unbroken. And so, the hidden trait, the one that grants an unfair edge, is not charm, nor intellect, nor ruthlessness. It is endurance in lucidity, to see clearly and still move forward, to understand the ugliness of power and still wield it with precision, to stand amid betrayal, deception, and chaos and remain composed. The world obeys those who cannot be rattled. The man who walks calmly through disorder commands both sides of the storm. Every ruler, if he survives long enough, encounters a test that strips away the illusion of control, the betrayal of those he once trusted most. It always comes softly at first, a hesitation, a delayed report, a glance that lingers too long. Betrayal never announces itself. It ripens in silence. The wise ruler reads the temperature of loyalty as a physician reads the pulse-sensing decay long before symptoms appear. When it comes, he does not react in anger. He records, he waits, he observes. For the traitor, once unmasked, becomes more useful alive than dead. The living traitor is an instrument of fear. His punishment is an example. The dead one is forgotten too soon. Consider the courtier who flatters his master daily, who swears allegiance with a trembling hand, yet whispers alliances in hidden chambers. The impatient ruler exposes and destroys him, and thus reveals his own insecurity. The patient one allows the poison to circulate just enough to reveal the rest of the infection. Power is not maintained by purging enemies too quickly, but by letting them expose one another. Those who fear betrayal too deeply become its architects. The one who learns to use betrayal as a mirror never runs short of information. Or take the ruler who governs through fear alone. He believes himself invincible because all obey his commands. But fear, when it becomes habit, loses its sting. His subjects obey him only until they no longer feel the pain of disobedience. Fear must evolve into dependency. To rule through fear without hate, you must balance terror with reward, to let your people believe that their suffering has purpose, that their obedience buys them protection. Fear alone burns the house down. Fear tied to hope rebuilds it in your name. Then there is the ruler who trusts his armies but neglects his spies. He believes power rests on open strength. Yet force is only one arm of dominion. Intelligence is the other. The sword may defend the throne, but information determines who sits upon it. Wars are not lost when soldiers fall, but when the ruler fails to see what approaches. The spy, the informant, the whisperer, these are the eyes of sovereignty. The ruler who blinds himself to their counsel loses not through defeat, but through surprise. In every age, there arises the minister who confuses his proximity to power with possession of it. He believes that because he stands near the throne, he shares its authority. The wise ruler does not banish such men immediately. He feeds their illusion, lets them believe their influence grows until they reach for more than they are given. Then the fall must be public, deliberate, and merciless. It reminds all who watch that nearness is not ownership, and that power borrowed is power revoked. Observe also the ruler who is too generous. His kindness spreads wealth and favor, as if gratitude were a stable foundation. But generosity is a debt that breeds resentment, not loyalty. Those who receive too much begin to despise the giver. They feel owned. The wise ruler gives sparingly, as a physician gives medicine enough to heal, never enough to intoxicate. Reward must be rationed like oxygen, sufficient to sustain, never to empower. Let them hunger for your approval. Satisfaction breeds insolence. A subtler danger lies in public opinion. The ruler who chases approval soon finds himself ruled by those he sought to please. The crowd loves quickly, forgets easily, and forgives never. They demand miracles one day and condemn hesitation the next. To govern them, you must speak to their instincts, not their ideals. They worship certainty, not truth. Appear decisive, and they will believe you wise. Doubt aloud, and they will devour you. Yet there is power in their blindness. Their praise can be weaponized, offered as bait to draw out rivals who crave the same adoration. Let others mistake applause for strength. You will use it as camouflage. Look to the merchant who manipulates markets, who predicts storms in currency and turns chaos into gold. He is not a king, but he understands sovereignty. For in commerce, as in politics, the same rule applies. Those who anticipate human behavior command its direction. He knows when to let panic rise, when to appear as savior, when to withdraw so that others destroy themselves. This too is a form of rulership, empire without armies, conquest without blood. Every domain has its throne, and every throne belongs to the one who masters perception, or the general who loses battles yet wins wars. He understands that retreat is not defeat when it buys position. He sacrifices territory to preserve momentum. The ruler must learn the same. Not every loss diminishes power. Some are rehearsals for control. To yield ground strategically is to teach your enemies where to expose themselves. People judge the visible, but power hides in consequence. The one who controls the meaning of defeat controls its memory, and memory is the real battleground. Beware also the temptation of visibility. The modern ruler, surrounded by light, begins to confuse fame with authority. He appears everywhere in councils, in speeches, in images, until his mystery dissolves into overexposure. And when mystery dies, fear follows. The unseen is always stronger than the visible, for men imagine more than they perceive. The ruler must be seen rarely, but felt constantly like a presence in the air, not a face in the crowd. Appear only when the illusion of inevitability requires a body, then vanish before familiarity breeds contempt. Consider also the rival who approaches as a reformer. He will not attack your throne directly. He will promise to perfect it. He will praise your vision, even as he plants doubt about your execution. The people will listen, for reform sounds gentler than rebellion. Yet it is rebellion in silk. To defeat such a rival, you must either embrace his reform so completely that he becomes unnecessary, or force him to reveal his ambition before it matures. Nothing kills reform faster than exposure of its selfish core. In private matters, the ruler must also learn the politics of intimacy. Every affection, every alliance, every whispered secret is a potential liability. Love is the one force that makes even the most rational mind irrational. Therefore, cherish affection, but never depend upon it. The ruler who confuses tenderness with trust will one day watch his heart turned into leverage. Keep your emotions as you keep your treasury guarded, audited, and never fully open to inspection. History's greatest survivors share one instinct. They understand timing. They know that even truth, when spoken too early, becomes rebellion, and that mercy, when given too late, becomes weakness. The ruler who moves with the rhythm of necessity always appears prophetic. He acts not when he wishes, but when fate allows. Power rewards those who strike in silence just before the world expects noise. To govern time is to rule the future before it arrives. And in the end, The true mark of supremacy is not how loudly one rules, but how quietly one endures. When the crowds cheer, remain still. When they curse, remain still. When the world collapses around you, remain still. Stillness is not inaction, it is sovereignty over chaos. The ruler who remains unmoved in the storm teaches all who watch that his calm is the axis of their survival. And in that stillness, invisible yet unbreakable, lies the secret that has guided every enduring empire. He who governs himself governs all. The hidden trait that grants an unfair edge is not charm, nor intelligence, nor audacity. It is clarity, the quiet, relentless clarity that cuts through illusion and reveals the architecture beneath appearances. Clarity is not the absence of confusion. It is the refusal to be ruled by it. It is the mind that sees without passion, that dissects without hesitation, that recognizes both virtue and vice as instruments, not as absolute. Clarity is what allows one to step outside the emotional current that sweeps others away, to observe it from above, and to direct its flow unseen. This clarity is not taught. It is cultivated through solitude, through confrontation with truth stripped of comfort. The weak flee from solitude because it demands the death of delusion, but the strong embrace it because only in silence can they hear the machinery of power turning beneath the noise of men. When you learn to see motives instead of faces, patterns instead of accidents, systems instead of events, the world ceases to surprise you. It becomes readable and therefore governable. Clarity breeds anticipation. The man who sees one step ahead is competent. The man who sees 10 steps ahead is feared. For anticipation is not foresight alone. It is strategy made flesh. It is to sense which way the wind will turn and to have already planted sails where others will scramble for shelter. That is the essence of dominance, to move not by reaction, but by inevitability. He who anticipates governs those who merely respond. But clarity is also discipline. It demands detachment from emotion, not the absence of it, but the mastery over it. Emotion clouds sequence, timing, proportion the geometry of command. The ruler must learn to feel deeply but act mechanically, as if guided by an inner compass immune to praise or outrage. To lead effectively is to become both human and instrument, to weep in private but act in precision. The world bends to those who can suppress their own impulses long enough to control the impulses of others. At its core, clarity is the art of seeing the world as a network of forces rather than as a struggle of morals. The clear-sighted ruler recognizes that morality is transient, but necessity eternal. He understands that to shape the future, he must first master perception of others, of himself, and of the moment. For power is never absolute. It exists in the space between perceptions. The ruler who controls how others see him controls how they act toward him. Clarity also means recognizing the limits of control. It is not omnipotence. It is awareness of boundaries. Those who grasp their limits can extend them. Those who deny them remain prisoners of their ignorance. The ruler who knows when to yield, when to wait, when to let silence speak in his place, that ruler cannot be cornered. His power is not in defiance, but in composure. The world cannot defeat what it cannot destabilize. This trait, clarity, is the dividing line between those who chase power and those who wield it. The former react to the movements of others, the latter shape them. The former drown in chaos, the latter ride its current. Clarity transforms survival into design, and design into destiny. It allows a man to stand in the midst of deceit, ambition, and betrayal, and remain unshaken, not because he is cold, but because he understands. Understanding is the armor that no weapon can pierce. And so, the unfair edge is not found in the sharpness of mind alone, but in the stillness that follows understanding. When all others are consumed by the noise of fear and desire, the clear-minded act as if the outcome were already written, because in their sight it is. The ruler who sees the world clearly does not need to force events. He positions himself where their convergence is inevitable. That is the ultimate expression of power, not to fight against fate, but to stand exactly where it bends. Clarity transforms the ruler into something beyond ordinary humanity, not because he abandons emotion, but because he governs it with precision. To see clearly is to resist intoxication by victory and despair in defeat. The mind that commands without delusion remains constant when the world oscillates between worship and condemnation. This equilibrium is the axis upon which real power turns. It is not the roar of conquest that defines the superior will, but the calm after it, the silence of control when the dust has not yet settled, and all are still watching, waiting for a signal that never comes. The unfair edge is born from this silence. It is not dominance through noise, but through inevitability. Clarity allows a ruler to speak little and yet dictate much, to move scarcely and yet shift the landscape. It is the quiet conviction that bends perception without force. Men obey the one who seems to understand what others only guess at. They follow not because he demands it, but because he embodies inevitability. Clarity, when perfected, becomes aura, an atmosphere of certainty that renders persuasion unnecessary. Yet this clarity is not static. It is alive, self-renewing. It adapts, evolves, refines itself in confrontation with every new disguise the world presents. The clear-sighted mind never rests upon assumption. It questions its own conclusions, tests its own truths, and remains wary of its own brilliance. For clarity that does not doubt itself decays into arrogance, and arrogance is blindness disguised as confidence. To remain lucid is to remain humble before the complexity of human nature, never sentimental, but never deaf to its pulse. From clarity arises composure, and composure is command. The one who does not flinch holds power even over those who believe themselves free. When others are seized by urgency, he is deliberate. When panic spreads, he becomes motionless. This motionless state is not inaction. It is measured energy, coiled within restraint. To others it appears as confidence, but it is in truth the absence of chaos. To lead is to be this stillness amid disorder, to stand where others tremble, to see where others blur. The unfair edge is also endurance, not of body, but of perception. Most men see clearly for moments. The ruler sees clearly always. He does not allow comfort to dull him, nor despair to blind him. He holds vision even through the fog of uncertainty, and because of that, he outlasts those who burn too brightly, too briefly. Time, for him, is not an enemy but an instrument. He knows that every frenzy burns itself out, every storm exhausts its violence, every enemy eventually reveals the pattern of his intent. Clarity turns waiting into dominance. True clarity also means detachment from the vanity of recognition. The clear-minded do not seek acknowledgement because they understand that power admired is power weakened. They prefer misunderstanding to exposure, distance to applause. The ruler's worth lies not in how many know his name, but in how few can predict his next step. He is not the face on the banner, he is the shadow behind it. The hidden trait that grants the unfair edge, then, is the mastery of invisibility through understanding. To be everywhere and nowhere at once. To shape outcomes without being named among their architects, that is the purest exercise of control. When the world sees a victor, clarity sees consequence. When the crowd sees fortune, clarity sees pattern. The clear mind perceives not the surface of events, but their gravity. It does not chase, it aligns. It does not hope, it calculates. It does not react, it prepares. The ruler who lives by this discipline ceases to be merely a man of action. He becomes an architect of circumstance. Others are trapped within time. He writes within it. And so, the secret of Machiavelli's wisdom is not cruelty, not cunning, not deceit. Those are but instruments. The secret is clarity, the ruthless lucidity that pierces human illusion and refuses to be swayed by noise. To possess such vision is to live beyond the reach of manipulation. To act with it is to govern the world of shadows, as if it were daylight. For in the end, every throne, every empire, every dynasty, visible or invisible, rests upon one truth. Those who see clearly rule those who only look. In the end, every form of dominance fades, armies disband, empires collapse, reputations erode into dust, yet the principle of clarity remains eternal. It is the one inheritance that survives every downfall, because it belongs not to the throne, but to the mind that created it. The ruler who sees through illusion, who governs himself before governing others, who acts not from passion but from precision, carries within him a power no fortune can revoke. When the world turns against him, when allies vanish, when the tide withdraws, he remains unbroken, deliberate, inevitable. The unfair edge is not loud. It is quiet, invisible, surgical. It is the awareness that control is not a performance, but a pattern of perception. To rule is to see farther than others, to anticipate the shape of events before they take form, and to act with such restraint that even chaos begins to move in rhythm with your will. The weak crave reaction. The strong create sequence. Those who live in clarity do not chase outcomes, they build the conditions that make outcomes certain. All power ends the same way, not with thunder, but with silence. The ruler who endures is not the one who commands the loudest, but the one whose absence still dictates motion. His influence lingers, not because he demanded worship, but because he shaped the instincts of those who remain. He becomes the unseen order in the hearts of men, the ghost that defines the limits of their defiance. And when history writes his name, it does not write it in praise or condemnation, it writes it in inevitability. This is the final secret, to become indistinguishable from the structure you build. When your will becomes the framework of things, when your thought becomes the natural law others obey without knowing, you no longer need to rule, you have transcended the need for rule. That is the summit of power, the final silence beyond ambition, to have seen the world as it is, to have shaped it with patience, and to leave behind a design so complete it no longer bears your name. The hidden trait, then, is not cruelty, nor ambition, nor intellect. It is clarity, the rarest form of strength. To see, to endure, to remain still, while all else trembles, that is the unfair edge. And the one who masters it does not conquer the world, he becomes it.